Welcome again. Welcome to the second session of the Global Art and Design Education Expo. I hope you've been having a good day so far. Yes, nice to hear that. So we're kicking off our next session, Designing for the Future, and joining me today is Raj Jhaveri. So Raj is actually the founder and principal architect at Design Logic. Let me just give you a small background about Raj, and then we're going to have a nice conversation which we hope will add value to you, right? So just to kind of get some perspective before we start, how many of you all are, are looking at an undergraduate program? Okay. And then most of the rest are looking at postgraduate? And how many of you all have had exposure or an inclination towards interior design and architecture? All right, okay. That helps. So we're taking these inputs because it'll allow us to curate the session and deliver something that will be good for you. Okay, so thanks for that. Okay. So Raj is a really interesting speaker, I would say. I've known Raj for some time, and we were just connecting and having a conversation, in fact, before this session. And he was telling me how he enjoyed his education. He studied in UK, so he did a course, a diploma program at the University of Middlesex, and then he went on to do a bachelor degree at the University of Westminster. So his diploma focused, he's basically always been involved in interior design and architecture. He's worked abroad, and he started his company after working in UK and UAE. He started his own company in Dubai, and then back in 2014 he decided to shift base and set up an operation here, and he's currently based in Ahmedabad, running a successful business, and staying to his roots, but still looking forward to the future and designing for the future. So I think thanks Raj, thanks for making time for this session.
Thank you, Amit. And hi guys. Thank you for coming as well.
Yeah. All right. So I wanted to kind of start this conversation by asking you, Raj, if you could tell me a little bit about your own personal journey. You've been a student, you worked in the industry, and now you run your own business. So each of these different elements have contributed to you, right? And if maybe you could just tell us a little bit about your journey, I think it'll build some context.
My actually journey with design started, I can't remember when it started basically. My dad was an interior designer, one of the first few in Ahmedabad. So, I remember that time interior design, and in a way, still it's a very informal profession, and a design profession. So design professions are not supposed to be, you're not there in the office from it's not your typical 10 to 5 job. It's more creative, and especially when you're in certain fields, furniture, product, fashion. It's very hands-on. It's very on-site. It's a creative field. So my journey started when I don't know, 3 years, 4 years, 6 years old. Whatever. I would go with my dad to sites. He would have a set of contractors, and I'd be running around on sites, and dangerous thing, with nails and wood and things flying around and stuff. But also going to the office, and again, I'm a dinosaur. I'm talking about the 80s here. There was no computers. There was no AutoCAD. There was no design softwares. Nothing. Everything was manual. You had a drafting board, so you had a set of designers sitting on these as big parallel scales and drafting away to glory, and then I would end up turning to the office and taking all the pens and pencils or messing around their drawings. So I don't think they were that happy. But that's the time when it started, and that's how I developed the interest into the field. So that was So that's my that's how it started. Then I started. So then, at our time again, there was no NATA. There was it was a very informal setup to get into a design school. Very limited design schools, good design schools in the country, also at that point in time. And obviously now you see things are very different. At that when I finished my 12th, it was you either take commerce, science. That was most of the option. And if you want to get into design, it's science. And we studied physics, chemistry, biology, math, nothing to do with design. And again, the experience we had, again, I'm talking 97, 98, the experience we had in even applying to different schools, if we wanted to do that, if we, I was lucky in a way to travel around while I was in school with my parents. So we went around internationally looking at places. So then kind of made my mind up that, you know, it's an option to go out and study design. But again, we were, as at that point of time, what I felt, and when I reached the first time when I went into class in the university, I felt we were fairly ill-equipped. Even when I went for my interviews, I mean, when, you know, they had reps coming in Bombay and Delhi, going in for interviews, I mean, they also felt that you were ill-equipped to get into a bachelor's design course straight away. They said that, you know, your portfolios are not structured. It couldn't have been. I mean, we were, again, Gujarat board, 12th. It was, we did object drawing for my portfolio. You know, and that's what it was. I mean, that's what it was. And now you've got something completely different. You've got so many options. You've got subjects you can choose. You've got people. You've got institutes to get your portfolios ready, and they tell you this is what you need. You know, you've got design institutes. I mean, they help you with your portfolios. They help you. They groom you basically, right? We didn't have that. So, but hence, the person who had met the council at that point in time, they said, you know, why don't you look at doing a diploma, which is a BTech diploma in art and design, which was probably one of the best things I actually did in terms of education. I mean, it really opened my horizons up, and I was fixated into architecture, in, you know, partially moving into interiors, but it gave me the option that, you know, I could get into graphics, I could get into, you know, product, I could get into fashion. I mean, it was when I went to London, it's a fantastic city to be in if you want to study design. UK in general as well, but London especially, so multicultural, so diverse and different. You know, a great amount of history. But when I went there, you know, you're suddenly exposed to so many different things in terms of you know, in terms of education, different ways of education. So yeah, as I said, you know, the journey started there, and yeah.
So thanks for that, Raj. You know, when you were talking, I was listening to you intently, and I think a lot of students here are at that stage where, you know, they have good options available in India, I would say. I think compared from the time where you found yourself to the time that we have now, I think you do have good art and design institutes in India. And of course, you've always had older institutes like JJ and Rachna Sansar, like just as a case in point for architecture, for example. But can you maybe spend a few minutes to say what has been the impact of you studying abroad? And like, see, you know, I also was going through your profile, and I also noticed that, you know, even in your current context, you are giving back to the student community. So you are visiting faculty at CEPT, right? You teach, go in as a guest lecturer for third and fourth year design students. So you've had this experience of looking at students at an Indian institute. You've had this experience of being a student yourself in an international institute. So can you maybe talk about what do you think are the pros and cons of, you know, studying in India versus studying abroad, you know, subject like design?
See, again, design as a curriculum, it's not something very set. You go into medicine, it's something very set. You know, you go into engineering, it's very, very set. So if you're studying at CEPT, or if you're studying at JJ, if you're studying at GLS Institute of Design, or this Anand, everything there is, it's very very different, the way people approach design education, students and faculty both. So I was, just before COVID, I stopped. Online education doesn't ring a bell with me when it comes to design. It has to be more hands-on. You have to be present there. So I did teach in SEP for a couple of years. Giving back is important. I mean, what I learned, but the difference, what I noticed, again, as I said, I finished my graduation in 2004-5, so it was quite a while back, and things have definitely moved on from there. But if I compare it from that point of time, again, massive difference. I mean, my first year itself at university, we were encouraged to work with different media. I mean, I learned silk screen printing. We would go with a 35mm camera, with the basic, your black and white. There's no digital camera that time, but we'd go take pictures, go to the lab, develop our own photographs, and submit them in our projects. We were encouraged to do welding, to work with. We had a nice workshop. SET is one of the few, again, colleges that I know has that. But again, we were. It was completely different. But also being in such a diverse place like London, a lot of history, a lot of things happening, did affect quite a bit. Education-wise, again, I cannot compare the education that I had with a single institute here, because we are looking at a completely different school of thought. We are not, I still feel, in a way, I'll talk about a good 80% of colleges in India. I see interns coming into my office, and I look at, I would say about 80% of colleges in India, if not more, have a very set format in their approach to education, in their approach to creative design education, which it shouldn't be. I feel design education, a student should be given their briefs on their projects, on their studios, and they have to be left to themselves. They should be guided, and they have to be left to themselves, not have a set format. I do believe, and I don't know about a lot of other universities, but I do believe a couple of colleges here are catching up with that way of education, but that's why they're adapting. But in the West, more or less, it's been there. You have to give students a tool. You have to let them free to be creative, experiment, and that's the way of learning. When you're in design, that's what I feel.
So I like the way you put that, and if I can just maybe expand on a few points. So Raj, as you said, in India, the courses tend to be a little structured. In fact, maybe way too structured. Versus courses abroad, one big difference is that you have many electives, many minors, and therefore no student's journey is exactly the same. So depending on the minors and the electives that you choose. So Raj and me, for example, could be studying the same ditto program, but because he and me have chosen different electives, when we graduate, his set of experiences would be a little different from mine. And each of our learning journeys and our learning paths are a little different. So that's one major difference. The second thing is that a lot of the learning happens outside the classroom. So when you are studying in only your city, you're exposed to the people in your city, right? By the time you finish school and college, and maybe the first 2 years of college, you've already got familiar with the vibe of your city and how people are in your city. And there is a fair amount of diversity in Ahmedabad also. Let's accept that, right? But when you go to another city, suppose you go to Mumbai or Delhi or Bangalore or even Chennai to study, because you are meeting people from different cultures, that kind of enhances your learning. Now let's take that at a slightly bigger level. When you go into an international location and you're studying in a place where you may have someone from Bolivia and someone who is a refugee from Ukraine. There could be someone who is from UK. You meet students who are from Pakistan, and then you feel that, hey, that student who's from Pakistan, he's actually one of my best buddies. I don't feel this animosity against Pakistan. That's happening there, man. I mean, but when we're studying here, Abdul and me are like good friends. So you might find, those experiences, going out with them, eating the food that is from their country, those kind of learnings, looking at how people think, learning a little bit about their culture, their customs. I think that helps you expand. This is one really interesting concept, and I think as a student of design, it's really important for us to know this. There was this one really cool philosopher who said that the mind, once expanded by a new idea, can never regain its original shape or form, right? And therefore the experiences that we have as individuals shape us. Like how Raj's experience of studying in the UK, he said, it just opened up so many vistas. It just helped me look at the world anew. And now when he's running a firm like Design Logic and he's talking to a client, many of his clients are well-heeled, well-traveled people. So they want to build a really nice interior. They want to create a feel, and he's able to relate to that because he's seen a little bit of that. He's experienced it firsthand, and that's really interesting. So let's go back to designing for the future. And everywhere you go, people are talking about.
Can I interrupt?
Oh yeah, sure.
Sorry. So when he was talking about clients, what we have. So the funny thing is with social media and the internet and now the newer technology, I mean everyone, actually it's the client who comes and says, this is what I want. And this is what I want my house, my space, my office, XYZ, whatever to look like. I'm like, why do you want me? Why do you want us? I mean, this is what you want to do. But that client might not have been to that space. I mean, he's seen an image of it somewhere. It'll be in the US, it'll be in Australia, it'll be in Europe somewhere, and he's bought it. Yeah, let's get this for my space. And I'm like, all right, fair enough. But being there, worked in places. I mean, I moved to Dubai after I just finished education after a year. I saw the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world, being built right in front of me. I mean, when I went there, it was 0, and then it became 168 floors. So, but being there helps you relate in a lot of ways to what the client wants. Being there, done that. All right, this is the quality he's looking at. This is the space you're looking at. I'm not saying I'm going to take his design, obviously, and that's not why I am here. But what we've also learned that nowadays, because clients, again, they're well traveled, they see everything on their phones, on their tablets, computers, whatever, and a lot of them know what they want in a lot of ways, but to adopt that to meet their requirements, in the end, they have to utilize their spaces. It's not us as designers, architects, who got to live in that space or utilize that space, but we have to respect the client's needs and requirements. You cannot ignore that. But again, worked and studied outside has helped me a lot to structure that out, for sure. The other thing is when you work, when you study in any of the I would say Western countries, the quality, your deliverables make a massive difference. I'm sorry, I'm not putting anything local down, but what you expect from the end product is completely different than what expectations which are here that way.
All right, so that's an interesting perspective. So as I was saying, Raj, we'll be talking about designing for the future, and everyone's just so focused on, right, okay, let's be sustainable, let's do something which is good for the environment. And so many times the conversations about sustainability or general perception about sustainability is, let's use sustainable materials, right? But there's so much more to sustainability than just the materials. Can you maybe walk us through that?
So again, designing for future, what we feel sustainability is a part of that. Technology, again, using different technologies in design also that comes into play. Flexibility, adaptability, again, that comes into play. But going back to sustainability, people feel sustainability is materials. It's not only materials. Sustainability is the life cycle of the building. If we talk about sustainability in architecture, it's the life cycle of the building. It's the production of materials. It's the impact on climate. We call it obviously carbon footprint. It's the impact, keeping in mind the local climate. Impact on the environment. So it's a lot of things. Plus, what I feel a lot of people miss is longevity. We have currently, as the newer designers, we forget longevity, which is one of the main things that we should look at when we design a space. We've completely missed that. I mean, right now, 30, 40 years is what we look at a life cycle for a good building. I mean, for it, to sustain. I mean, putting a garden on the rooftop or having green grass around doesn't necessarily make a building sustainable. A building has to have a life. People should be happy about seeing that building, not right now, but maybe 50, 60, 70 years time. I mean, you see such beautiful architecture around. You've got 100, 200-year-old buildings that people are reusing them. We call it in adaptive reuse. I'm sure a lot of you come across that term, and design students would have done studios in that particular topic. So reusing buildings. Why? Because we like the building. The building is being built to sustain and to withstand time. That also is sustainability for us. Knocking the building down and creating something new. Again, massive negative carbon footprints. We're looking at wastage of material, all sorts of stuff. So that's what my views, at least, on sustainability are. And there are beautiful, beautiful buildings that are there in India, in the West, East, wherever. When we examples, I mean, stunning examples of buildings being kept, history being kept, and that, again, to me, is also sustainability.
Yeah, it's really interesting. When you look at chefs, they're really going down to local produce. So the concept is, why should I, import the tomatoes from Italy when I can actually try and do my research, try to find a good farmer, use it to organic farming, and I can source really good tomatoes locally. So in the context of interiors and architecture, keeping sustainability at the center of it all, are you seeing a trend that people are sourcing more materials locally versus trying to import stuff?
Yeah, I mean, that's you have newer practices coming up all across. Young architects, I mean, leading from the front, designers using local materials, using easily available materials. I mean, I'm sure most of you are know what rammed earth blocks are. Now, when you do rammed earth, any architecture with rammed earth blocks, you're actually using the soil. Let's say if you're building a house, you're using the soil from your land to build a block, which is going to be, which is a building block for your own space. So things like that. Using material ethically, innovatively, also local materials. I mean, bricks. So I have a friend they're doing spanning with bricks, it's fantastic. I mean, it's not innovative, it's something not new, but they're promoting it. And now when we look at, again, for those who are not into architecture and interiors, it'll be basically what I mean is doing full roof structures with bricks. No slab, no concrete, nothing. It's all done with bricks. So again, very innovative practices. People working with older, older materials. People doing innovative plasters, lime plasters. Again, these are things that are used locally, available locally. You've got labor, skilled labor available to do this kind of process. It's a faster process, very less negative impact on the environment. So, yeah, I mean that for sure, people are going to the, I would say, to the roots.
That's nice to hear, and I think when you're talking about the future, I remember you and I were having this conversation just before this session. When you look at sci-fi movies, when they show you stuff from the future, it does look like it's from the future. So, design is such a dynamic subject area. It's not just about the architecture or the interiors, but it's reflected in so many different elements, So from the kind of products that they design, or from the kind of automobiles that they design, or from the kind of way they design functional things like an elevator, for example, something as absurd as that. But it looks futuristic and it looks kind of cool. So are there some, design principles or concepts that you see being applied in a wider spectrum of disciplines when, looking at the future?
Again, when we look at, design is something, and the scales are massively different, right? You're looking at something very macro. I mean, you're looking at urban planning, where you're looking at designing towns and areas, and then you look at something very micro, where you look at jewelry design. But one thing, what I feel, so design principles is something very different. Like, yes, it plays a massive part, but I think in everything, sustainability is one of them, which currently is very, it's very important. Flexibility, adaptability, and longevity is what these are the principles, these are the things that I like to follow. The space, or if you're designing a space, a building, or a chair, it's a response to what is around it is also important. But now also when we look at design for future, we look at technology coming into play. Computational design, I'm sure most of you are aware of it, parametric. We've got some really nice innovative softwares that are helping students and designers coming up with what they do. We were talking about sci-fi movies, Star Wars, Star Trek. This is a sci-fi I grew up with. But again, you look at the shape of the Enterprise, the Starship Enterprise, or one of the newer Star Wars movies. All this is now possible because of technology, and because of computational design. You've got applications right now, they help you make what you've imagined. You've got this nice disc shape of the Enterprise. You could not physically, you could not draw that on a drafting board at any time. Cutting sections out of that would have been very difficult. But with computational design coming into play, it is possible. 3D printing coming into play, again, it is possible. We've got all sorts of technology right now in our hands, and it's just going to improve. The new thing, now we look at metaverse, designing in the metaverse, and people can go creative, people can go wild there. Virtual reality, that's the next big thing, what I feel.
The next big playground,
yeah. It's definitely going to be a next big playground. Not as much, I currently look at what's going on around, and not so much here, but in the West, metaverse, designing in metaverse, it is also going to be the next big thing.
Awesome. Before we open the floor to questions, I just want to ask you one last thing, Raj. There's a lot of rhetoric around AI, and everyone's talking about how they're really using artificial intelligence to do this, to do that, to optimize this. So in the context of your industry, in the field of say architecture and interiors, have you seen AI make a positive impact? Do you see it increasing in importance?
I see it increasing in importance, yes, but AI meeting human creativity, because creativity does stem from your own, it's a thought process, it's your mind, and how would you tell AI? Let's say, listen, design a chair or design a building. How do you give that building some sort of theme? Like we talk about AI. Let's design a building inspired by
Salvador Dali.
no, it could be Salvador Dali. Design a building. No, let's be more
Specific.
More specific. Let's say design a building inspired by Frank Lloyd Wright's Farnsworth House, for example. Let's say, so let's design a house inspired. It'll do that. Where is the creativity? There's an inspiration there, and it's just gone and copied principles of it into it, but the creativity part. So there will be an effect. There will be an impact, and again, it's very early stages at the moment, but there will definitely be an impact, and it will have a major role.
In the mock-ups, like say for example, you have an interior space, and you're kind of thinking with the blank, you're starting with the blank canvas, and you're using digital software today to create a virtual rendition of the output you will deliver to a client. Do you use, for example, AI to create multiple iterations of that?
Not AI necessarily. We use virtual reality to do that. So now with the wider availability of headsets and stuff, so we're doing something like that currently, where we're taking the client in his space, giving him a headset and saying, this is what your house is going to look like. Walk, So the guy is actually literally walking with the headset. It's like, you know what, I don't like this door. Okay, click on, you have this little clicker thing. Click on it, the door design is going to change. So we've got a second option. So we're currently doing something like that, but we've not gone the next till AI yet.
Okay, all right. Okay, I really enjoyed this discussion, and I know we could talk, we will continue talking, but it's also, I really want to kind of give students an opportunity to ask any question that they have. So if you have a question that you'd like to ask Raj, we're happy to take them. Any questions? Yes, please.
Looking for the visual communication and graphics in nano perspective, will AI will be the tool for it, or will take over the visual communication overall?
It cannot take over. I still feel, again, it cannot take over. It will always assist. Technology and AI in general will always assist. But what I feel in creative applications, it will. I don't feel it's going. I mean, I've looked at, there are websites on the internet where you would say, design an artwork. So you would write your words or your taglines or whatever, and then it comes with that particular artwork on top. But you still got to give that tagline. You still got to tell them what you're thinking about. And again, a person educated and worked and experienced in the field will not be what a layman will not be like that. So let's say you are equipped with a degree in visual communications, you worked in it. So for example, you will be very on point, you will know what you're looking for than someone like me. I mean, you understand that, right? So I don't think it is gonna make anyone obsolete. It's not gonna, it's there to assist. It's probably there to make your job a lot easier.
I absolutely agree. I mean, I've been reading a lot of blogs and also hearing a lot of podcasts on how AI is shaping the world around us. And a lot of the conversation, a lot of the chatter is around generative AI, and a lot of course, mileages happen because of ChatGPT and the really cool stuff that it can do. And the immediate applications that we're actually seeing is in the field of content marketing, in the field of social media marketing, and you have a lot of AI tools that help you do this. There's image to text generators. You have AI tools for video production. You have AI tools for blogging. You have AI tools for this and that. But as Raj rightfully pointed out, it's really playing an assistive role and helping us improve our productivity. And therefore, we need to have the right kind of mindset to it. It doesn't make sense adopting a stance like it's us versus AI. It's not like that. Actually, it's more like I do my job well, and AI is going to help me do my job better. So in a given day, if I could generate 3 outputs, now because of AI doing 80% of the work for me, or 70% of a little bit of the, let's say even 30% of the prep work for me, right? I can now generate 5 outputs. And to that extent, I am now as productive as 1.5 workers, So that's the way you should kind of look at it. But that's a good question. Thank you for that. Any other questions? So it's an open forum, looking at the future. If there's something that is a thought in your mind that what's going to happen going forward, we'd be happy to take that. Yes, please.
Sir, as you would what is the future in India for designing metaverse?
See, I know someone currently, when I was in Dubai, a friend who's got a practice there, they're designing for a art collection of a bank. Okay, so these private banks, their art collection, they're designing a gallery on the metaverse to display the art collection, which they cannot display to the public. This big multinational bank who's got a good art collection as a net worth. It's just an example, so, and designing, and as I said, at that time you can just go wide, but it's going to filter down to India, and so the applications are going to be huge. Now, if again, just an example, if I'm a person who has something I want to show, but it physically cannot reach everyone, rather than, my images, images or walkthroughs on social media is very different from what people experience on the metaverse. So I will put myself out, or what I want to show that onto the metaverse. It's still not caught on, but it has good implications, good possibilities. That's what I realize. And again, when you're buying places, when to put something out there, you need to invest something on the metaverse. So I feel there will be good possibilities and good implications, and it's got a good future.
Absolutely. That's a good one. Thanks for that. Yes, please.
How to build your brand? How do you become different from your contemporaries in interior design? How people should recognize you that, okay, this is your work?
So what I feel is, first of all, in this day and age, this massive, they're literally, if you have design colleagues call them design influencers. I'm not going to name anyone here, but they're design influencers, and they've built a brand. But if you kind of scrape the surface, it's very shallow behind what a lot of people have. But what I feel, your work speaks for you, okay? And getting it out there. If you've got something good, getting it out there, that's important. What I personally feel is, when you start, when you finished your design education, in any aspect of design, I think experience matters. Right now, people in Gujarat, what I've seen, they jump in, chalo yaar, apna practice karo. We're done. We're designers now. We know our stuff, and it's not the way things work. Get your experience, get your contacts. With experience in a design firm, be it in any form of design, you will be in touch with vendors, you will be in touch with people. That's how I started out. I mean, my first project was from, I was working in Dubai, and my first project was actually a client of my firm that I was working, and which the firm said, you know what, you can handle this on the side. I was going to leave. So I said, listen, I have this particular option. it's a small scale project for you to come into play. Can I continue? And it would not have been fair for me otherwise. He said, I had good relations with them, with my previous employees. They said, listen, you know what, you'll be on our visa as well while you do that. Then you start your own. So that's the first project. That's how I started out. Then it's just your work will speak for you. No matter what people say, building a brand, building this, and different, how do you stand different is obviously your work and the effort that you put in. It was not my, and why did the client approach me? Actually, I was working in a firm, but I was on site at 2 o'clock in the night, making sure his project is ready to open the next day. The client saw that dedication, effort. These are very old school words. When you talk about how do you set yourself different from it's the effort and dedication that you'll put in towards it. Nowadays, marketing is also very important. I mean, I got into Instagram during COVID. I didn't know what it was. As I said, I'm a dinosaur, So I'm like, hey, Instagram, kya hai, social media, kya hai? And then I did realize, what? I've got nothing to do with COVID. Might as well learn something, So then I got in, we started, and it makes a difference. It does make a difference nowadays when we have prospective clients who say that, do you have a website? I'll say I have a website. No, do you have an Insta page? It's more easily accessible. The content makes it more, interactive and fun. But it's two parts. In the end, no matter how good or how many followers you will have, if your work doesn't support you, you will be found out. So your work, your dedication matters. In any form of design, it's very different. Obviously, the work, you follow trends, your own work, you following certain design principles. That also makes you stand out. But these certain things, what I believe, it makes you stand out. It's just your relationship. For me, and in any design, आपको ऐसा board नहीं देगा. What? Oh, we are architects or designers on the road. You will never get that. You will always, your work speaks for you, right? So it's the relationship you build, it's the contacts you build, and your work. I think these three things talk to you. Most of my clients, again, we're very young as a practice here. You're looking at 7-8 years, which is not that old. You have old practices in Ahmedabad. I'm talking very local at the moment. Gujarat in general, but your work basically talks. Your relationships, not your contacts, your relationships talk. So that's how I feel.
I think what you've said here has got such absolute applicability, no matter which line of design you're actually looking at. And I would like to thank you for bringing it out so well. The fact that do work that you're proud of. Don't do work from the point of view of winning an accolade. Or don't let not your motivation be that I want to get 1,000 more followers or 10,000 more followers on this platform or that platform. Be focused on your work. Firstly, do good work, and that work and the ethics with which you operate, the philosophy with which you operate, which means sometimes it also means saying no to do stuff if it is not in sync with your own model framework or your own ethical framework within your organization. I think that's really important. So the good old school things like dedication, hard work, ethics, integrity, commitments, deadlines, being professional, responding on time, those basics I think apply to all kinds of businesses and all kinds of practices of design, right?
Yeah, they completely do. Obviously, as I said, along with this, your work. It does matter. But if you've got all these in line, you've got your things sorted, it should be that. It should be fine. The work should also be your end product, be it space or be it a mug. That should be good.
All right, thanks. It's been a lovely session. Let's give a big round of applause to Raj.